What happens when an elderly woman discovers that her husband and neighbors secretly raised a child without her knowledge or consent? She steps onto the church stage, and what she says leaves the entire room in stunned silence. Her speech forever changes the town's idea of what family really means. You know how folks say what goes around comes around? Well, let me tell you something. If I had $1 for every time that turned out to be a load of nonsense, I'd be sipping mojitos on a beach in Florida right now, not standing on my front porch pouring lemonade for people who only smile with their teeth. That Saturday started like any other. I laid out a big glass pitcher of fresh squeezed lemonade, cinnamon cookies baked with my own hands, not from a box, baby, from scratch. Because that's how I was raised. If the world turns cold, you warm it with kindness, even when you're freezing inside. Then Michael showed up with his little girl, Tiffany. Sweet child. Braids neat as Sunday morning. Eyes like brown sugar. And a face that made you want to pinch your cheeks. She called me Miss L in that soft little voice. And my heart just, well, it folded like laundry. Michael leaned over the fence with that same easy grin he always wore when he needed something.
Miss L, any chance you could keep an eye on Tiffany tomorrow? I got a church meeting I can't miss.
Well, of course I could. What was I going to say no to that baby holding a teddy bear like it was gold? She looked at me like I was Santa Claus in slippers. I smiled, said, "Sure, thanks, sweetheart." And just like that, I melted faster than butter on hot cornbread. Now, here's the thing they don't tell you about kindness. When it's blind, it turns into a setup. And I didn't know it yet, but I was walking straight into one. That night, while I was doing the dishes, Ronald, my husband of 20 years, thought I'd already gone to bed. Bless his heart, he's never been good at keeping secrets quiet. I heard him in the living room, talking low, real low. That special man low. You know, the kind where every word slices like paper across your soul.
If she finds out, it's over. We'll both lose Tiffany.
We. Both. Tiffany. I damn near dropped that frying pan in the sink. And then, another voice. A man's voice. Muffled, but familiar. So familiar, it curled the hairs on my neck. Because I knew it. Knew it like the sound of my own doorbell. It was Michael. In that moment, I didn't feel cold from the breeze. No, ma'am. I felt it deep, where your belief lives, where your trust, your dignity, your "I thought I knew you" sits. I slipped into our bedroom quiet. I got under the covers, but my hands were shaking like I'd been through a storm. And then he came in, just strolled in like we hadn't both been living in two separate realities. He kissed my cheek and said,
"Good night, El."
I said good night too, out loud. But inside I was already gone. Just a shell of the woman I was that morning. Crazy, right? I'm out here baking cookies for folks, taking care of their kids, opening my door to people who knock with their elbows. And meanwhile, in my own house, I'm the uninvited guest to a secret life. A life where my husband and my neighbor are hiding something so big it didn't even fit in that little teddy bear Tiffany clutched. And baby, let me tell you, what happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how this unfolded. The next morning, I played my role like I was hosting a morning show, smiled through the lies, flipped waffles like I believed we still had peace in that kitchen, pretended the scent in the air was butter and cinnamon, not betrayal. Tiffany came over right on time, just like Michael said. She was hugging that big fluffy teddy bear like it held all the answers in the world, white as a cloud and twice as soft, with the red ribbon around its neck like it was headed to church. I'd seen that bear before, but something about it caught my eye this time. One of the paws looked off. The stitching was tight, but messier than the rest, rougher, like someone tried to hide something. While Tiffany flipped through her little picture books, I bent down to pick up a pillow, knocked the bear over by accident. It hit the floor with a thump, and then I heard it. Shh. Not stuffing, not candy, paper. I picked up the bear and turned it around. That's when I saw it. A tiny zipper tucked beneath the ribbon, almost invisible. And Lord, I knew. I didn't want to know, but I knew. I opened it, my fingers already shaking like the truth was burning through them. Inside was a folded piece of heavy paper, neat, clean, like someone cared deeply about what was written inside. And baby, on that very first line, my heart dropped straight down like an elevator with no brakes. My Tiffany, you are our light. Your daddy and I waited so long for you. Our light? Your daddy and I? And then came the real hit. When Ronald and I decided to become fathers. Stop! What do you mean fathers? What do you mean, Ronald? My Ronald? I read those lines again and again like my eyes were broken, trying to make sense where there was none, trying to spot a typo, a joke, something. But it just kept getting worse. There was mention of a surrogate mother, a contract, and how she might find out one day. Well, guess what? She just did. Hello, Elle. You're not a wife. You're a placeholder, a scenic prop in someone else's family portrait that you didn't even know existed. It took me 10 whole minutes to stand up. I was shaking, my mouth dry like I'd swallowed dust. I looked at Tiffany, this sweet, innocent child who I had held, fed, rocked to sleep, like she was mine. Because in my heart, she was. But now, I wasn't even sure who I was to her anymore. Babysitter? Background character? The woman who didn't ask enough questions? I didn't scream. I didn't throw plates. Because I'm grown. I've got manicures and spine. But that evening, oh, I had a plan. I laid the table like I always do. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, napkins folded right. And in the center of Ronald's plate, the letter. Didn't say a word, just watched him see it. Watch his face go pale like he just remembered Judgment Day was today. He dropped his fork, stammered like a kid caught sneaking out after curfew.
Elle, it's not what you think.
I tilted my head. Really? 'Cause I think my husband spent 20 years feeding me lies with a side of hidden babies and exes across the street. He pushed his chair back.
That was a long time ago. I chose you. Michael and I, yes, we wanted a child, but that ended. You're not seriously going to throw everything away over this.
I stood up too. My voice was calm, but my spirit, loud, on fire, done. And when exactly were you planning to tell me you had a child with your former partner? Silence. When she turned 18, or when you had to co-sign her college paperwork as parent number 2? Nothing. Not a word. He just left, walked right out the door. And I stood there, in that kitchen I built, with the man I loved, and the life that was never really mine. Turns out, I wasn't his wife. I was a placeholder in a stage play called Keep Elle Quiet. And baby, what you just heard, that's only the tip of the iceberg. It's about to go downhill, fast. And trust me, you're not ready for what comes next. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I sat at the kitchen table in my robe, staring into a coffee mug that hadn't seen real coffee in hours. All it held now was bitterness, and not the kind that comes from a dark roast. No. This was the kind you get when you're 67 years old and suddenly realize your name on the paperwork meant nothing. You start doubting whether you even seasoned that soup last week, or if Ronald from a whole other universe did it for you. The rain tapped the roof like it had something to say. Ronald shuffled into the kitchen slow and silent, like a thief breaking into the church he grew up in. And what did he do? He opened the fridge, like it was just another Thursday.
Do we have any bacon?
Oh, we've got bacon. And eggs. And a whole side of betrayal. You want it fried or scrambled? I didn't answer. just walked out. But my mind was screaming, because somewhere in that house I knew the truth was still hiding, folded up neat like that note in Tiffany's bear, but deeper, buried. So I went to the shed, not for air, not for peace, but because I remembered something. When Ronald and I first moved in together, he redid half the house with his own hands, nailed floorboards, laid rugs, wired lights like he was building the home we both grow old in. Back then, he made a joke I didn't think twice about. Nobody finds what you hide under the floor. Back then it was cute. Now, it felt like a breadcrumb from the past, a warning I hadn't seen until it was already too late. I pulled up the old rug in the corner of the shed. There it was, one loose, squeaky board. I pried it up, heart pounding like a drum line. Underneath, a shallow compartment, dusty, cold, and a suitcase. Old, worn, brown like dried skin that ain't seen sun in years. I lifted it out, unzipped it, and baby, when I saw what was inside, the whole world cracked like a plate thrown in anger. First, bank statements, transfer receipts, check stubs, all made out to Michael, month after month after month, straight from the account with my name on it. So while I was out here picking curtains and matching throw pillows, my husband was out here paying alimony to the past. Or worse, financing a future I was never invited to. But it got worse. Tiffany's birth certificate. Mother, unknown. Father 1, Michael James Lawrence. Father 2, Ronald Bennett. 2 fathers, 1 child, and no mother. Not even a blank for stepmom, just heir. That's when my knees gave out for real. I didn't feel weak. I collapsed. Sat down hard on that dusty wood floor like the truth finally hit with both fists. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just money. It was erasure. I wasn't overlooked. I was never even considered. I was just the guest actress in a play that had already been cast, directed, and reviewed, without me. I was just the smiling woman on the poster. Tears? No, ma'am. There weren't any left. What I had was fire, and a kind of shame that felt righteous. I put everything back in the suitcase, zipped it up, set it right out in the open. So when he walked in, he'd know I knew. Then I put on my shoes. No umbrella. And I walked right across the street, right through the rain. Because after 20 years drowning in a flood of lies, one more puddle don't mean a thing. Michael opened the door like he'd been expecting me. His face? Ashy, guilty, weak.
Elle.
I don't call me that. You don't get to say my name. Not you, not him. He opened his mouth to speak. I didn't let him. And then she came out. Tiffany, holding the same teddy bear, looking at me like she was still her comfort, her safe place, her Miss L. Miss L, are you coming on Saturday? My mouth opened, but no words came out, because in that moment, I didn't know who I was to her anymore. Grandma? Stranger? Pawn in some twisted family chess game? I left. Quiet. But inside? Inside, I wasn't the same woman anymore. Not the neighbor, not the wife, not the fool. I became a woman who knows. And once a woman knows, she's capable of anything. This is the turning point. Everything you've waited for, it's here. But don't blink. The storm ain't over yet. And when I step back into the light, they're gonna wish I stayed in the dark. Let me tell you something. If you really want to know who's got your back, Walk into a school fair with a broken heart and a fake smile. That's where the masks come off, quicker than pancakes on a hot Sunday griddle. That morning, I baked my signature pecan honey pies, not because I had the energy, not because I cared what they thought, but because sometimes strong women like me, we hold ourselves together with oven mitts and purpose. We crack in silence, while folks whisper behind our backs. The school was just like always. Kids squealing, music playing, smell of popcorn hanging in the air. I came in with my pies in a woven basket, same as every year. Wore the same cream hat I always do, the one that says, I belong here. Only this time, the community decided I didn't. That's her, one mama whispered, loud enough for the air to carry, but soft enough to pretend it wasn't meant for me. Her husband and the neighbor, you heard? Yes, sugar, I heard. I heard every lie you didn't bother to fact check. Another chimed in. And the little girl? Aren't they raising her together or something? Or is that just some grandma myth? A myth? A myth? I walked past them like they didn't matter, laid out my pies like they deserved a table, smiled at the volunteer like I wasn't being treated like a stray cat at a dinner party. But the truth? People love sweet grandmas until they find out grandmas have a history, a spine, a story, a past they didn't script. Kids ran by, parents turned away, and I stood there with my hat, with my pies, alone. Then something happened, something small but louder than all the gossip. Tiffany, in her little yellow dress holding that worn-out teddy bear, eyes wide, heart open, no judgment, just a question. Miss L, can I tell people at school you're my grandma? I froze. Every instinct in me wanted to scream, baby, you don't have to carry my mess. But her face, she wasn't looking for drama. She was looking for love, for someone to stand beside her when the world got confusing. I crouched down and looked her dead in the eye. Sweetheart, if you want to call me grandma, then I already am. 'Cause real family, it ain't about blood or paperwork. It's about who stays, who shows up, even when everything's falling apart. She nodded, wrapped those little arms around me, and in that hug, I felt more truth than I ever did in 20 years of marriage. I stood up, turned to the crowd of grown folks pretending not to watch, and said, listen good. I'm the one who raised that girl. I baked for your kids. I worked your events. I cleaned your mess when you left early. So if now you think I'm less, if you think I'm dirtier than your whispers, then go ahead. Take your balloons, your cookies, and your two-faced kindness and choke on it. The air froze. Even the DJ forgot to breathe. I took off my hat, set it down on the table like a mic drop, and walked away. Not because I lost, but because for the first time in a long time, I walked in my truth, and it held me steady. You know what happened next? 3 women followed me out, choir women, church women, the quiet ones in the third pew. They didn't say a word. They just hugged me, and one slipped a business card into my hand. If you ever need a lawyer who ain't scared of dirty truths, call. We know real when we see it, and you're the realest thing this town's got. All right, this is it. The fire's been lit, but you ain't seen the final blaze yet. The next chapter, it's the moment everything flips. So hold tight, the finale's coming and it's gonna shake the room. The stage at our church ain't big, maybe 6 feet across. Carpet stained with candle wax from Christmas vigils, and a microphone that pops unless you raise your voice like you're calling down heaven itself. It wasn't built for confrontation. But that Sunday, that little stage became a courtroom, and I came to testify. They'd asked me to speak at the annual community meeting, probably expected me to smile, thank folks for buying my pies, say something cute about unity and blessings. They didn't know what was coming, but I did. I wore my burgundy blazer, The one I wore when I buried my first husband, a real soldier who never once lied to my face. Same shoes, too. And my heart, it wasn't fragile anymore. It had cracked, rebuilt, and now beat like a war drum. The mic hissed, but I didn't. "Thank you for giving me this moment," I said, "because all I have left is my voice and the truth I've pieced together like clippings from old recipe books." And then I laid it out, not as a cry for help, as a verdict. For 20 years, I lived with a man who called me his wife while building a hidden life with someone else. A man across the street. Together they brought a child into this world, and they never told me, never asked, never even gave me the dignity of knowing. I found out from a teddy bear. Silence, the kind that swallows the whole room. No coughs, no whispers, not even a baby crying. I kept going. That child, Tiffany, is innocent. She's light, but she's been surrounded by shadows, lies, secrets, and payments taken from accounts that carried my name. But I'm not crying anymore because the truth, it ain't a curse. It's a weapon, and I'm done letting it sit on the shelf. No tears, just one final truth. If you want to turn your back on me, go ahead. But do it now. Don't waste my time pretending. And if you still believe I'm that little girl's grandmother, if you still see me as part of this community, not just someone who bakes cookies and waves politely, then stand with me or get out of my way. And you know what happened? Applause. Not the movie kind, not fast, not pretty. The kind that starts slow, heavy, one woman, then another, then the whole room. Justice? Yes, I took him to court. Turned out some of those shared documents Ronald used to move money were forged. I won. Not just my money, my dignity. Ronald, he paid. Financially and publicly. Michael moved out quietly, no drama. He knew he was part of the problem. Maybe for the first time he made the right move. And Tiffany, she still comes over every Saturday. We sit on the porch, sip lemonade, talk about school, stars, books, the weather. And every time she calls me Grandma L, I smile. Not because it flatters me, but because this time, it's real. It's earned, and nobody can take it from me. Truth ain't always pretty, but it frees you. And me, I'm no longer a wife, no longer a bystander. I'm not just the woman next door. I'm the woman who stood up and didn't sit back down.